welcome to the EntreQuest podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. This is the place, as we know, to get success mantras of tech entrepreneurs, investors, and this time policymakers as well. So I'm extremely thrilled to sit with you, Chiara. You've done so much for women, for the society. This episode is for anybody who's interested in how policymakers and political figures can actually make a difference in the contribution of women entrepreneurs in tech. And my guest here today is here to help us with just that. So welcome to the show, Chiara. I'm extremely honored to sit with you.
Good morning, me too. I'm so happy, and I just would like to add that I'm not finished my work. I still have plenty of energy to continue to have a positive impact and continue to do things not only for gender, but really for the whole humanity.
You started as a journalist in Rome, your career, and today you're the voice of Women's Forum. You contribute to G7, G20. How did this happen?
It happened because since I was really a child, I wanted to change the world in a better way. And at my time, I really thought that with my capacity to write, to make editorials, we could, as a journalist, influence things and make a difference. And then I had the opportunity to come in France by marriage, and I did an outstanding career where each time I had in mind to give back to the community for all what I had received and how I could have a positive impact. And really, it was by chance. I always relied on women when I wanted to carry on projects. I will tell you more then.
Interesting. So, like we are speaking about women, right? We are talking. This is a broad topic, and our focus today is tech entrepreneurship. I remember that last time when I spoke with you, you told me there are several factors. It starts from the time, and you just handed me some of your notes. It starts with women getting into STEM, right? And then eventually you have VCs impacting how many women actually get access to funds. And there are so many factors. So I want to know your take on what factors impact.
First, we have to know that we are really living in a disrupted world. 85% of the jobs are either invented or reinvented. And what we know, that those new jobs, we don't know what they look like, but what we know is they're linked with STEM education. And the fact that it was not the case 15, 20 years ago. Now everything goes so fast, and you're not there where you can really bring a contribution to this change, you're out of the system. And I take an example, AI. We're not talking only about ChatGPT, we're talking about AI. AI, it's an important issue. Each way we're living, acting, thinking, consuming will be related with AI. AI will drive in our daily basis, our common life, not only big cars, companies, finance, everyone's life. And the issue is that you have only 22% of women active in AI. That means that these very well, wonderful, intentioned white engineers will just scale up what they know. They will just put in the algorithm the data that they know. And at the end, the risk is very high. Because in fact, we will of course scale up stereotypes, bias, and the risk is that we just create a world that doesn't correspond to the need of each of us, but just of a very small part of those who decided what the AI will be able to do. And the second risk, it's not only the AI that should be, of course, inclusive, and everything should be done to make this AI inclusive. It's also when you have this AI, those who will be giving the orders to the AI, what they need, what they search, will extremely be important for the results. And again, they are mainly men. And we cannot, in this polycrisis, in this so difficult period that we have, not having more women involved. Again, not to promote women, but because the society needs the talent of each of us. I always say, when you're in a war, and we are in a war, and not just in a in a really true sense of the word, when you're at war, the general, what it does, it takes all the talents, it takes all the resources, all the expertise, because he wants to win the war.
Right.
And we're not using women talents enough because of the fact that there are not the numbers in STEM education. Because for many reasons, maybe traditional reasons, maybe uh, educational reasons, maybe again bias and stereotypes, women are not enough active in STEM, in all the fields of STEM, and this it's not changing fast enough. We still have only 20% of engineers women. And by the way, what we did to do in G20, we really put the STEM education as the enabler,
Right.
the catalyzer of leadership, women leadership.
It is indeed.
It is because this world needs that.
Yes.
And you see, it's the same for men. Huh? We need more men also involved there. And you see, I was just saying in the G7 now, I was just finishing my GIAC virtual meeting with my colleagues. And I was saying, even if we talk about security, peace, defense, conflicts, a woman should not only be at the table negotiation as diplomat, of course. Women should not be involved to protect, to help, and to prevent crises, but should also be able to prevent in terms of cybersecurity.
Indeed.
You know that, for instance, 3 years ago, when the games were in Tokyo, there were 5 million cyber attacks. 5 million, it's a lot.
That's colossal.
Here in France, in the next games, by the way, for the first time in more than 100 years, games will be completely equal. You will have the same number of athletes women and the same number of athletes men. But guess what? There will be 5 billion potential cyber attacks, and women are only 11% in cybersecurity. That means that for our security, for our states, for our personal security, for the business security, there are only 11% of women active there. And that's the danger again. And coming back to the conflicts, peace and security, I really think that also to fight against fake news, disinformation, that brings to press not reliable press, that means that you don't have a real press freedom,
Right.
but policy freedom. But because you don't have enough women, again, to fight against this fake news, this disinformation, that is also at the source of many conflicts. Then you see the role of STEM is not just how many women will be in mathematics.
Right.
Of course, it's important. How many women will be in also physics, that's important. But it's also in key issues like conflicts, like security, like, of course, AI. Again, I repeat, this is so essential.
It is.
And I think that we don't found a miracle way to attract and retain more girls and women. They have to have the same opportunities that boys, exactly the same, since they are 5 years old, from schools to the boardrooms.
Indeed.
Lifelong story, all the time. And all the life they should be skilled, reskilled, upskilled, cross-skilled. If I am at my age, I want to learn to code, I have to. It's no reason that I'm not able to learn to code and bring my contribution to society. It should be all over. And this is in all countries.
Continuous process.
Yeah.
I think what you've touched base upon is extremely important because, out there when you try to understand this issue, you see people talk about the current state of affairs. Very few actually try to dissect the situation and say, okay, what is the root cause behind it? And I think, again, when people think of gender, diversity, equality, they kind of feel allergic to these terms. But the moment you make them understand, this is not just about us as women. It's about, as you mentioned, in the global interest of the country, of the security, etc. So,
if you want to build a bridge, you take the best engineer. Talent has no gender. You need talents everywhere. You again, if there are not the numbers, women cannot express. They cannot bring the contribution. Look, in France, you have only 3 women in the CAC 40. The index of the bourse. Those 3 women are one active in Orange telecommunication.
Right.
The second one in everything that's urban management, utilities, Veolia, and the third in energy, Engie. 3 wonderful women. What they have in common? STEM education.
Yeah.
The three of them come from Polytechnic. They have the capacity because technically they know how to do. Our former Prime Minister, Elizabeth Bourne, that I had when I was administrator board member in RATP,
Right. Yes.
RATP is transport. And Elizabeth Bourne was the president of RATP. Again, polytechnician, she come from Polytechnic. And I remember her expertise where companies such as Cisco, Xerox came and was coming to explain, we will make some economy and energy, you will save some, I don't know what. And she had immediately the competence to react without having notes, without having people telling her, and that makes a difference.
It does.
You see, it makes you reliable, credible, legitimate where you are. Then competence is what everybody, man and woman, needs. And that's why I'm really very involved in how to invent a new system of inclusive leadership in which you don't only have leaders capable, and it's not easy, true leaders, it's not easy to be, capable to associate the best talents to bring it where the vision wants to go for purpose, for good, for something useful for the society.
Right.
Not only this, it would be also, of course, zero gender gap, as much man as woman. I just remind that actually in the world, in 2024, we only have 6% of women CEOs of the 500 first companies in the world. 6%. And again, it's always linked with STEM, because many companies need technical, digital, or engineers competencies.
That is very true, even for the C-suite positions. I mean, that's what they look for.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing, when you look at companies, they say, okay, we have 50-50% policy, but then you see that women are not in leadership positions. They are mostly like positions that do not have much influence.
In support position, very often they're in support position, very often they're very important support position, but they're not those who take the strategic decision. Because again, if you want to make a decision on something that's very technical, you need the competence. You cannot, if you're an expert in human resources, you cannot say if this bridge is good in this part of the world or if there is an earthquake coming, because you're not an expert in in geological structure of the ground, etc.
Right.
Then I was coming back to the leadership, inclusive leadership. For me, inclusive leadership, it's this, zero gender gap, it's open-mindedness, it's tolerance. It's very rare to have people able to listen and then to take a decision. This is inclusive leadership, to listen to people before taking a decision. And it's also, of course, international open-mindedness, open-minded in terms of religion, open-minded in terms of tolerance of everything that's going on, really integrate the different point of views before taking a decision. But it's also the capacity to have, at the time, financial, management, marketing, let's say business, typical competence, but also a part of competence coming from STEM education, a mix of the two that will make an inclusive leadership leader. And that will favor also the arriving of new talent of younger generation that will mix these two. And that will be, of course, much more also gender favor for women who will be easily accepted in this kind of inclusive leadership.
In these kind of positions. So to me, the key takeaway is for the governments and for the countries in general to start with the root cause, which is get more and more girls into STEM so that eventually they can build on, as you mentioned, the skills.
Governments, businesses, and civil society, mothers, fathers, teachers, they all should be conscious of the importance of that. Because you cannot leave the government alone.
I totally agree. It's like, and that's why on this podcast as well, I want to have all kind of stakeholders, just can't hear one side of the story. How important do you think are the laws? Because they say, we don't want to have any kind of laws imposed on us. We know talent has no gender, so we would just see whosoever is capable.
It's based on experience. It's based on success stories. What works, what doesn't work. Unfortunately, we would all dream that world could be changed without laws, because it's impossible. If you want to respect human rights, you need laws. And even with laws, it's difficult. If you want to respect human dignity, you have to punish those who don't respect, even if you don't like ethnic laws. And in gender equality, all the countries who don't have a legal frame, you don't have more than 26% of women in the boards.
Interesting.
No one.
Yes, I think
No
you
one.
mentioned that earlier.
I mentioned that because I really count, checked, verified, because at the end of the day, I was not a quota woman, and when I was in the board, it was before quota existed. But now I see it works. It accelerates things. Look in France.
Yes.
In France, we were 11% in 2011. Now we are more than 46.3% in the boards.
That's amazing.
Thanks to a law.
Yeah.
Copé-Zimmermann law. And even better, look, I think that this is a law that everybody in bias is the Rixin law. And I've been very active to implement it with Marie-Pierre Rixin, who is a wonderful member of the Congress. Who really fight to get it. By the way, it has been voted unanimously, even if we were during the COVID, and maybe during the COVID, people could say we have other priorities. Despite this, it was voted unanimously. And why the word in bias, this law? Because this law goes deeper on. It's not only the board. The board is very important because the strategy of the groups. But it's also very important that the executive committees, that means the operational one, on a daily basis bring the purposes, the vision, the ambitions of the companies and the performance, of course. And in this, you have no countries with a law apart France. And this law is very simple. It should just oblige the companies to prepare a pipeline of talents in order that you have the number of women required to be 30% from now to 27 and 40% 29. It's absolutely reachable, possible, because you have the talents, but you have to be prepared. You cannot just decree, I will take somebody. And what is very important is that you not only promote a person because you need a number, because you need a woman, because in a number, because in the executive board, you cannot take the risk not of people who are completely needed to the company. Then you have to pick the right position, those who really make the job. They make the job on a daily basis. Then this is extremely interesting to see this law, and it works. Even not 3 years, we are now 9% more. We are almost 27%.
That's quite an exponential growth.
Exponential.
Right behind you, we have Christine Lagarde, and I was watching one of her interviews at the European Parliament, and she was speaking about how not having enough women in the European Union can impact GDP. For example, by 2050, she predicted the GDP per capita would increase by 9.6%, which is almost 3.1 trillion euros, which is significant. That would be the impact to the European economy. And she said that
worldwide, it's at least 20%.
Look at
28 trillion.
And she mentioned the same thing, like if we do not have laws, if we do not have targets, it's going to take way more longer to get to that goal. So,
first let me say all my admiration, affection for Christine Lagarde. She is a great, great lady, and she did so much for women all over the world. She did much, not for only women, she did so much for the economy, for the society. And she has an enormous heart, of course, competence, but she's really somebody that, unique. She's incredibly wonderful. And I wanted to say that this is my message. I don't know when the podcast will come, but this is my message. If we women want laws that are fair for us and for the society and for the economy, not only have to go to vote, look the European Parliament, we have to go to vote. If we let the others get no place, then we cannot say, okay, we don't agree what has been done. Let's put in place the person who represents us, our values, what we want to be done, and we will ask them then to do what is needed. And when I talk about going to vote, it's of course the European Parliament, but it's in each country. This year there was 5.2 billion people invited to go to vote. We have the chance to vote. Many countries don't have. Look, Afghanistan.
Yes, exactly.
We have the chance to vote.
We have.
Let's go and choose who want to be there to represent our rights, our willingness to change things.
That's so insightful, Chiara.
You know, the important things. Numbers are important because if you don't have numbers, you cannot progress. But what is important? That you put your heart in what you do. That means that when you really want to help a company, if you really want to help a startup, you will find the money. Because if you really want to change things, if you put all your determination and all your heart, you will succeed. Especially young people like you with passion, energy, and the willingness to achieve something.
That's $1 million advice. I think, like, for everything that you need, you're just one step away from it.
You never get back. If you want something, never get back. Trust in yourself. Go ahead. Never get back.
Wonderful. Chiara, you are a true inspiration for everybody out there. I'm so honored to have this conversation with you in Paris. And keep inspiring us. Like, let me just tell you, you're a big inspiration for women out there. Not just women, men, countries, governments. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Thank you, and now act. Engage yourself and go.
Indeed. There you go.